help us to come together. Angels, God, universe, all divine beings, like help us to come together in the way that we are meant to come to serve the greater divine truth, the greater divine light, to show up as our true selves and help us to navigate this craziness of this world. Welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We are your hosts, Cristina
and Luisa, and today we are talking about humanity and what we're going through collectively right now, the challenges we're navigating, but more so than that, how do we connect with the angels, the cosmic angels, the Herschel Angels, who are they and how are they helping us navigate these challenging times? Let's dive in.
Okay, so I feel like there's so much going on right now that is actually insane. Like on so many levels, I don't even know where to start. I mean, at the very basics, I feel like time is going by so fast, and it's already halfway through 2025, and I feel like we've already lived 5 lifetimes, and we are experiencing and witnessing so much chaos in the world, and then we have our own personal challenges and journeys, and it's just like, how do we stay sane for the rest of the year? Like, what do we do here?
How do we make it through this? Yeah, definitely. We're hanging on by a thread. I've been having lots of challenges and struggles with social media, with everything that I'm consuming, especially because, I'm usually in the realm of, the news cycle and all that. So it's getting really overwhelming and disheartening to see what's going on everywhere. But then that translating into the smaller things in life, it also seems to be true. Like this chaotic energy is just filtering through all aspects of life, personal, global, work. It's all over the place. So I guess I'm not sure what kind of cycle we are on stars wise, what's going on, but it's definitely, and I think definitely everyone feels this.
Yeah. I feel like, they definitely do. And I think sometimes it's hard to discern because sometimes it's just like, oh, is this my just personal stuff, my personal journey? Or am I just picking up on all the collective energy that's going on? And now I have to process that and how I'm taking in, like you said, like the news or social media or whatever people are talking about, just even on the street, like people, that's the topic of conversation. And so it's I feel like it's one of those things where the intensity of the energy that we experience both on a personal level and collectively it almost feels like a pressure cooker. You know what I mean? Like there's like this pressure. And also at the same time, I do feel like it presents a really powerful opportunity for something greater to come in, if that makes sense. There's this opportunity for transformation, for transmutation, for light, for us to, if we were kind of like sitting on the fence, yeah, maybe one day, and then now it's like, no, like I gotta get up and move and do something. So I don't know, that's just like generally, I think, what I witness or experience in all this, but it's definitely a huge thing to dissect, I think.
I think so. And I think part of it, it's kind of like, what's happening with the collective. And definitely at this time when there's so much conflict and so many things going on around us, I think because we're all that part of that energy. So I guess we absorb and translate that into our lives in different ways. So I guess it's just translating into just the madness that we're witnessing. There's also the fact that what we consume, it's kind of becomes our mindset. So then it's easier for us to feel overwhelmed when we pull out our phones and then we go through our social medias and keep scrolling, and then it's just one thing after the other. And so there's no stopping that. And that naturally creates a sense of overwhelm that then in our lives, I guess it manifests in different ways. Now that
experiencing and witnessing so much chaos in the world, and then we have our own personal challenges and journeys, and it's just like, How do we stay sane for the rest of the year? Like, what do we do here?
How do we make it through this? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're hanging on by a thread. I've been having lots of challenges and struggles with social media, with everything that I'm consuming, especially because, I'm usually in the realm of, the news cycle and all that. So it's getting really overwhelming and disheartening to see what's going on everywhere. But then that translating into the smaller things in life, it also seems to be true. Like this chaotic energy is just filtering through all aspects of life, personal, global, yeah, work. It's all over the place. So I guess I'm not sure what kind of cycle we are on stars wise, what's going on, but it's definitely, and I think definitely everyone feels this.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, they definitely do. And I think sometimes it's hard to discern because sometimes it's just like, oh, is this my just personal stuff, my personal journey, or am I just picking up on all the collective energy that's going on, and now I have to process that, and how I'm taking in, like you said, like the news or social media or whatever people are talking about, just even
Mhm.
on the street, like people, that's the topic of conversation. And so it's I feel like it's one of those things where the intensity of the energy that we experience both on a personal level and collectively is, it almost feels like a pressure cooker. You know what I mean? Like there's like this pressure, and also at the same time, I do feel like it presents a really powerful opportunity for something greater to come in, if that makes sense. There's this opportunity for transformation, for transmutation, for light, for us to, if we were kind of like sitting on the fence, yeah, maybe one day, and then now it's like, no, like I gotta get up and move and do something. So I don't know, that's just like generally, I think, what I witness or experience in all this, but it's definitely a huge thing to dissect, I think.
I think so. And I think part of it, it's kind of like, yeah, what's happening with the collective. And definitely at this time when there's so much conflict and so many things going on around us, I think because we absorb, we're all that part of that energy. So I guess we absorb and translate that into our lives in different ways. So I guess it's just, yeah, just translating into just the madness that we're witnessing. There's also the fact that what we consume, it's kind of becomes our mindset. So then it's easier for us to feel overwhelmed when we pull out our phones and then we go through our social medias and keep scrolling, and then we it's just one thing after the other, and so there's no stopping that, and that naturally creates a sense of overwhelm that then in our lives, I guess it manifests in different ways. Now that we're bringing up the collective, actually I wanted to ask you how at times like this, because we have different levels of angels. We have guardian angel, personal angels, guardian angels, archangels. We have seraphim angels, and then we have some of them that work at a larger kind of scale. When we talk about Herschel angels, cosmic angels, do they play a role at all? Because we're talking about something, I guess, at a collective level. What role do they play when we as humans are going through times like this?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And to me, it's definitely like those, I call them universal angels, meaning that anyone can call on them. They're here for the collective, they're here working specifically on that like divine timeline and universal kind of what is for the greater good for the collective energy. And from their point of view, and like how they are here to support us, it's that they are here kind of like this guide and kind of bringing in this direction so that we can fulfill what this whole unfolding is about, which to me, it's about healing this planet on a deep, deep level, from the sense of like for many, many, many years now, many centuries now, it feels like we've veered away slowly, like keep veering away, veering away, veering away from our true divine nature. And
Yeah.
so the awakening that we are all experiencing right now, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you are most likely on a spiritual awakening journey. You're most likely curious, asking those questions. So I'm just going to assume, I'm just going to say we, assuming everybody listening to this right now is on that path. And so the reason why we are on this, why this awakening is happening, is because there are many souls that have come here at this time to bring things back into balance and to bring back this light and to essentially bring in this new paradigm, this new earth that people talk about. And that maybe you've heard that term, the new earth, the new paradigm. It's a new way that is being brought forward. But the only way to that is we have to, like, the dismantling and the breakdown has to happen. It has to happen so that we can build new. And so to answer your question about the angels, I feel like they, like these universal angels, like the Herschel angels, the cosmic angels, the archangels too, they're kind of in that category of universal angels. They are guiding that bigger divine plan, and then making sure that as we awaken and as we are remembering this, that those of us who are on that path, on that mission, whatever you want to call it, that we are fulfilling whatever that plan is calling us to do, if that makes sense. And like, no pressure,
Yeah.
anybody. Just like, we're just fulfilling this divine plan, but like, no pressure.
No pressure. We're all doing our part to get us out of this mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, it makes sense. And the fact that everything has to sort of, and that's true in life too, everything has to sort of fall apart to fall into place sometimes. And the universe has a way to make you uncomfortable enough that you're going to move and try and find something new or different, and a new way to do things, so that at the collective level, I guess that translates as well as this that we're seeing right now, what's happening with everything everywhere really is like, can we get a break?
Yeah. I know. I
It's
know. It's
real.
like actually insane. It's
Yeah.
actually just like, what is going on? What is happening? And and it is one of those things too. I was thinking earlier when you were talking about that stuff too, was how do you find that balance of staying informed and being aware of what's happening, and not just like, putting your head in the sand, so to speak,
Yeah.
and just ignoring like, da da da, I'm not here. Like, I'm just gonna focus on my love and light. Like, there has to be a balance, because otherwise I feel like that is that's one of those things where if we're ignoring it, then we're not actually doing the work. Like, part of it is
Yeah.
the experience of the duality. It's the duality, as at the end of the day, of this is so devastating and heartbreaking, and like just so many words in terms of what we are witnessing in the world. And at the same time, I'm holding this light, I'm holding this frequency, I'm holding this truth, the hope, the faith, like all of those things are
Right.
important for us to hold at the same time as we witness it and also feel the grief of the destruction. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And in a funny way, it also opens your heart to new levels of compassion and empathy for humanity, and getting out of your own head, your own needs, your own little life, and just seeing what's happening everywhere really opens up your perspective in new and different ways, and activates that, brings the worst and the best, right, of humanity. But then it's like, how do I help? How do
Yeah.
I make a difference? Or how do I get involved? Or how do I support this process? And because you're seeing, you can just not look away. You can't ignore it. It comes
Yeah.
to a point where you just need to do something about it. So hopefully people in the midst of, all this chaos, feel compelled to show up in a new and different way in response to that. So I guess we grow through the struggle, and we grow through what's happening. Funny enough, I was having a meeting, and I have the oracle card deck here with me in my desk, and so I'm shuffling cards before getting into this meeting with this person. And then I guess that's the theme of the day. Speak your truth.
Speak your truth. Oh my gosh.
And it was such
Yes.
a powerful moment in that specific meeting because I went in there to talk about one thing, and then we ended up discussing my full self and how we show up in the world as different things. And we wear many, many hats in no matter where we are, but when we show up as our full selves, and I can define myself as, someone that a communications expert and peer expert. And but I can also define myself as a mom, but I'm also like a small business owner, but I'm also a certified angelic healer, and I also am a co-host of this podcast. And so embracing who you are, as maybe
Yeah.
weird and all over the place as that may seem, and how that all comes together in a very cohesive way. And I was talking to this person who on the surface was a wealth advisor and someone in the financial space, but then she was also a Reiki practitioner, and she was also building a community of women, entrepreneurial network of women, and how she, like, a multifaceted person that she was showing me too. And then we had a great exchange on so many different levels that didn't really make sense, but they really did
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
very weird way. And so, speaking your truth, I guess, um, made it connect in that way. The fact that when we show up as who we are and speak our truth, that's when we find the most interesting relevant connections too. Um, and
Yes.
I got all the tinglies, and I was like, okay, this connection is going to lead to something important. And then, yeah, I by the end of the meeting, I understood what that exchange was really
Mm.
about.
Yeah.
And so that is so interesting. But it only happened by, yeah,
Yeah.
opening up and speaking my truth.
Right. And you being like tuned into it too. The fact that your awareness, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's such a huge part of this process is our intention, and in terms of like where, because we always have that default programming, right, where we're just kind of more in our like ego, in our whatever, in our human, in that kind of
Hmm.
denser frequency, and just like
Yeah.
show up, I'm gonna do this, talk about this, da, 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 da. Or there's that higher intention, higher level energy of like, let me show up and be in my truth and speak what's in my heart, or show up in the energy of love, or show up in the energy of compassion, or whatever the case is. And then that allows that openness. And I feel like that's exactly this whole shift and transformation is that when we show up as our authentic self and just like show up in that, then that the other person on the other side kind of has an opportunity to meet us there, if that makes sense, kind of like meet us there. And then you're at this higher level, and this exchange is so much more beautiful and deep. Like you just shared your experience, such a deeper experience, such a deeper conversation than what might have just been like a surface level, just whatever kind of a thing.
Yeah, the fact that I had in that moment sort of the guidance, but also sort of the courage to actually follow through and do it, was the thing that made that difference in that connection. So yeah, it's to stay true to ourselves, no matter what's happening, no matter the context, and help and actually leaning into that and who we are to navigate life right now, especially when it's challenging and people are looking for those connections, right? It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
important.
Totally. And I think something else that you touched on that's really important is the fact that it's just as simple as what like your experience of just having a conversation with one person. It doesn't mean like to have an impact or to experience this level of depth doesn't mean that you have to be speaking to multiple, like hundreds or thousands of people. It doesn't mean that you have to like have this big platform or anything. It's just really about how you're showing up in your everyday life. Like that's where it starts, and that's where the impact is. It's not, I think sometimes people can feel like, well, like I don't have a platform. I'm not this whatever person, like what impact am I
Co-host of this podcast, and so embracing who you are as
Yeah.
maybe weird and all over the place as that may seem, and how that all comes together in a very cohesive way. And I was talking to this person who on the surface was wealth advisor and someone in the financial space, but then she was also a Reiki practitioner, and she was also building a community of women, entrepreneurial network of women, and how she like a multifaceted person that she was showing me too. And then we had a great exchange on so many different levels that didn't really make sense, but they really did in a
Yeah.
very weird way. And so speaking your truth, I guess, made it connect in that way. The
Yeah.
fact that when we show up as who we are and speak our truth, that's when we find the most interesting, relevant connections too. Um, and
Yes.
I got all the tinglies, and I was like, okay, this connection is going to lead to something important. And then, yeah, I by the end of the meeting, I understood what that exchange was
Mm.
really about. And so that is so interesting. But it only happened by, yeah,
Yeah.
opening up and speaking my truth.
Right. And you being like tuned into it too. The fact that your awareness, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's such a huge part of this process is our intention, and in terms of like where, because we always have that default programming, right, where we're just kind of more in our like ego, in our whatever, in our human, in that kind of
Hmm.
denser frequency, and just like
Yeah.
show up, I'm gonna do this, talk about this, da, 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 da. Or there's that higher intention, higher level energy of like, let me show up and be in my truth and speak what's in my heart, or show up in the energy of love, or show up in the energy of compassion, or whatever the case is. And then that allows that openness. And I feel like that's exactly this whole shift and transformation is that when we show up as our authentic self and just like show up in that, then that the other person on the other side kind of has an opportunity to meet us there, if that makes sense, kind of like meet us there. And then you're at this higher level, and this exchange is so much more beautiful and deep. Like you just shared your experience, such a deeper experience, such a deeper conversation than what might have just been like a surface level, just whatever kind of a thing.
Yeah, the fact that I had in that moment sort of the guidance, but also sort of the courage to actually follow through and do it, was the thing that made that difference in that connection. So yeah, it's to stay true to ourselves no matter what's happening, no matter the context, and help and actually leaning into that and who we are to navigate life right now, especially when it's challenging and people are looking for those connections, right? It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
important.
Totally. And I think something else that you touched on that's really important is the fact that it's just as simple as what like your experience of just having a conversation with one person. It doesn't mean like to have an impact or to experience this level of depth doesn't mean that you have to be speaking to multiple, like hundreds or thousands of people. It doesn't mean that you have to like have this big platform or anything. It's just really about how you're showing up in your everyday life. Like that's where it starts, and that's where the impact is. It's not, I think sometimes people can feel like, well, like I don't have a platform. I'm not this whatever person, like what impact am I going to have in that, and it's great like to show up in the light for myself, but like how can I make a bigger impact? But the fact that if you bring it back to your everyday life and who you're interacting just on a daily basis, that is enough. Like that is the impact, and then trusting that you'll be led from there.
Yeah, you never know the impact you're making in someone else's life, truly, or whoever you're talking to is going through at the time. So just showing up with that empathy and understanding, and everyone is, in their human, doing the best they can, but they're probably feeling just as overwhelmed as you are, and they're all navigating life and challenges and things that we don't even know about. So showing up with empathy and kindness and openness and showing as your full self, and just with that mindset of being, of service and showing up in the best possible way for others, not to get something out of it or something in return necessarily, but just to to be there and be authentic and provide something to them, I think that's the way to go. And that always
Yeah, 1,000%.
creates the best results. Okay, going back to the angels. I just wanted to go back because we tend to just drop things like that, and again, just thinking people relate to this in a similar way, but maybe they don't. When we talk about cosmic angels, when we talk
Mhm.
about Herschel angels, let's get to know them a little bit more. Cosmic angels, what's their job? What are their names? How do they look? Who are they?
Let's go to the basic. Like, who are you and why are you here?
Cosmic angels 101, and then we'll get into the Herschel angels, which are even weirder.
So, look, I see the cosmic angels as like a collective energy. So I don't really necessarily feel them, or it hasn't come through that often, at least, where it's like individual angels like we do with the archangels, for example. With the cosmic angels, it has always felt kind of like this collective energy and this collective, yeah, of beings. I was like, am I saying the right word? Yes, a collective of beings that are supporting this, the like I was saying before, like the divine will and the divine plan. And I see them almost as though, like, if you were to think about Earth, like think about the ball that is Earth, right? Floating in space, this big rock floating in space. And if you think about, I feel archangels like very close or like within the sphere of the earth, and the Herschel angels feel a little bit more outside of it, but still almost like within the, I don't know, like the atmosphere layer. And the cosmic angels feel like they're even more outside of that, so it feels like they have a greater connection in the sense of like the universe as a whole. You know what I mean? Where there's this energy with, in connection to the stars too, and in connection to the planetary movements, and that there's just this greater sense, like if you were to zoom out and see even a higher perspective, that's where the cosmic angels are hanging out, and what viewpoint they are operating from. So if you think about also our viewpoint, and if it's like, if I zoom in, let's say to my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, like her viewpoint of what is important in the world is like so tiny because she's so little, right? And it's just like, like I didn't give her the right color plate is like a devastating thing, because it's like, no, I wanted the white plate, not the pink plate or whatever, And so in their mind, it's like that is such a huge deal, and that's a big thing. That you zoom out to the adults, and it's like we have our higher perspective compared to the kids' perspective of what's important, like what do we need to take care of, what's going on, responsibilities, etc. But even our point of view can be very limited when we think about it from a human point of view, to when you zoom out even more and you think of it from your higher self's point of view, right? And then so as you keep zooming out, you keep having this different viewpoint, higher perspective, etc. So the way that I see the cosmic angels is that they have this very zoomed out point of view in terms of what is happening on earth, what our roles are, like everything that's going on. And they have a higher perspective in terms of the, I don't want to say goal, because that feels like a wrong term. Like it's not really a goal, but it's almost like the unfolding and what the divine's will is from that greater perspective. You know what I mean? So does that make sense how I kind of like compare
Yeah,
the
no, that makes perfect sense. That's a great way to describe that. And I guess my follow up question would be then, in the context of what we're talking about, and given that it's just global events and this reality that we're navigating right now, they would be the ones that are here for like the collective and humanity at large. Let's not let them or support them in this transition, in this energy, and let's help them not kill each other, or like what, that level, or not even farther removed, like at a.
Yeah, I do feel like that. Yes, it has an impact
Okay.
on that level,
Okay.
definitely. And also, yes, definitely there's an even greater kind of like beyond the 3D influence or perspective kind of a thing,
Okay.
like
Okay.
in the sense of the souls and who's here and what are these souls doing, and that
Right.
sort of thing.
Okay, so then at the level of the soul, and what did we send all these people here at this time to do? So, soul purpose, soul mission, and what are we all doing here from a collective perspective at this time?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so then is there a point in us connecting with them at all at a time like this? Like, please help us not kill each other, or not at all, and they're doing their thing and they're just
Right. Yeah. That's actually a really great question. And yeah, you're right, because they're not really here to help us personally. You know what I mean? So it's there. It's not really like if you were to try and call on a cosmic angel and be like, can you please help me like heal my broken heart or like whatever kind of a thing. It's not really their role. So it would be to your point, kind of like
a
quote
larger
unquote
scope.
pointless to say that. 'Cause not that they wouldn't be, supportive, but it would be they would probably just like call in kind of like, okay, Archangel Raphael, you go take care of that or something. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's actually how they work, but
That's not
that's
good.
how I imagine it in my head.
Right. We're calling on the manager to do someone else's job,
Yeah.
I would say.
Exactly.
Yes.
So yeah, but if it's, let's say, a prayer to them of,
Mhm.
praying for collective healing or
Mhm.
praying for the earth, or also in a sense of like praying for like guide me in terms of what my role is at this time to support the collective, where it's really about the collective. It's a collective driven energy versus a self energy. Sometimes we have a more self directed where it's kind of like, well, help me to understand this, or help me to you know show up in whatever way, or help me like there's that direction, or there's the, what does the collective need? How can I show up? What is my greater calling here? It's more in that outward sense. So, but it's also still, I would say, in a more prayer form of just like praying, sending love, sending light versus, help me heal this thing or whatever.
Right. Let's, yeah, help us, the collective humanity, tune into our soul purpose and help us get through this difficult time
Yes.
okay, the
Yes.
planet. Perfect. So that's more of it. And that's interesting that it's difficult from a human perspective to relate to certain things like that, like they being many and one
Mm,
thing at the same time, kind of an idea. So how does that? It's not like I can visualize an archangel. Well,
yeah.
quote unquote, I can visualize her, but even begin to relate to that. But a cosmic angel, what is it? It's a
Yeah,
black
right.
space of shining light. Like, what is it?
Yeah, that's such a great, yeah, and totally it is one of those things. I feel like it's very abstract, and because the level of their energy too, because they're so further away in the sense of they're not so close. So for us to be able to understand the archangels as, okay, these beings, and we see them depicted as like humans with angels, right? Like they have those features. In reality, they're just energy, but it feels like there's a sense of like individuality,
Yeah,
and we can
yeah.
relate to that because of our human perspective. From a human perspective, we are individuality is like the key thing to understand, because we feel separated, because we see each other as separate
Mm-hmm.
individuals, right?
Right.
So then, because the cosmic angels aren't really working from our like on such a dense level,
Mhm.
they don't need that individuation. But for our human brain, it's like, but what's your name? Like, who are you? Kind
Who
of a
are
thing.
you? So yeah, cosmic angels. It's several of you. It's just one big blob of something. Like it's just so hard to try.
Yeah, just one big blob of light.
Love and light. Great. Yeah. And zooming out and like, okay, how is yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that what God is? A big blob of light and love.
That
So
is how I
how is
see
that
God.
different from the other
That's
blob?
right.
That's when we start to struggle to understand. Just zoom out.
What's
That's
the
that's
difference
how we're
between these two blobs?
humans and not
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Our higher selves or something like the zooming out stops working at certain points. So you just can't
Yeah.
even, you
Yeah.
know, compute
Yeah.
what that
Totally.
is.
Exactly.
That's so
Exactly.
interesting.
Like brain cannot compute right now. What is happening?
What is happening? And so Herschel Angels,
Yes.
they're also really weird and lovely.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to describe them. So with the Herschel Angels, they are, in that comparison, I feel them closer to the earth,
Hmm.
but still a little bit more removed than the archangels, for example. And by the way, I just want to make a note that even though I'm comparing them on these levels of like
Right.
closer to us or further, I don't feel like there's hierarchy in that way necessarily.
Great.
So, but it's just the best way I feel like that I can describe, and that makes sense to our brains of like where they reside or like where their energy is in terms of the
Yeah.
collective, you know?
That's funny that we're, as a species, we just need to know who's the leader, who's the.
Yeah.
But does not really make sense
Yeah.
in other levels.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
So then, yeah, so then with the Herschel Angels, I speak of one very often, especially if you're taking any of my courses or workshops, and that's the Herschel Angel Alexandra. I have shared a few videos on my YouTube channel about her. And so with the Herschel Angels, it does feel like Alexandra is like, I don't know, the spokesperson for them or something. I don't know. She's the one who comes in and is like the energy that represents the Herschel Angel realm. However, I do feel like they have a bit of more individuation between them, but it's also not been as clear as the archangels, for example. So when the Herschel angels first came and first stepped forward, which was back in, was it 2018? I think I want to say 2018 is when when they came through. Actually, if I remember correctly, it was right around the solstice energy, which we are right around
Right?
the solstice energy
Yeah, coming
as
through.
we're recording this. So it's actually interesting that that's coming through, kind of like coming back around to that. But I remember when the Herschel angels first came through, there was this impression of like Alexandra, and then there was these other ones. And at the time I got like brief information about these other ones, but it wasn't as, I don't know what the word is even. Like Alexandra was very clear and very strong and very like so much to come through. And the other ones felt a little bit more distant, if that makes sense. And then over time, like they would come through every once in a while, but as the years have gone by, they
Mhm.
feel like they've kind of just merged into this, I don't
Oh,
know,
they're
the
blob.
collective,
Right.
the blob. Yeah, the collective blob. And it's really Alexandra. So,
Okay.
and so I try not to force it and be like, well, who's there and who are the other angels and things like that, because to me, that feels like it would then create an opportunity
Not
for
about
me to
that.
maybe, yeah, like try to fit them into a box when they're not supposed to be inside that box. Like, what's your name and who are you? So I've let go of that, like, who are these angels and
I
whatever.
would still be that. Who you are. Why are you here, sir?
Tell me right now. Yeah, I know. But Alexandra comes through quite often. And the main things that the Herschel Angels come through as a collective too is big thing is leadership. I feel like supporting
Mhm.
people in their leadership role and supporting people. So they have a bit more of a connection directly to the people in the
I
sense
was
of
going to
like
say people or all of the people, all humanity, or
both, but I do see them working specifically with individual people. Like they'll come
huh.
through and like share a message, let's say in like a reading or something. Like sometimes they'll come through and
Mm.
specifically share something for a particular person regarding their journey. So they do come through to support you specifically on your path, but oftentimes it's still more related to the bigger kind of like the leadership, the greater divine plan, like why your soul is here versus the like everyday life kind of things. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So there's still more of that energy there. It's almost like they're the bridge. The Herschel angels kind of, we can relate to them kind of similar as the archangels, but then they also have this connection to something bigger,
Cosmic,
like the cosmic
larger.
angels. So they're kind of the in between.
The in between the archangels and the cosmic angels. So closer to humans, but not quite as close as archangels. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So then when it comes to working with the Herschel Angels, for example, I would say it's still like it's not necessarily the same as when you call in the archangels, like a great example, Archangel Michael, like protect me in this situation, like bring protection, or Archangel Raphael, help me with this healing. With the Herschel Angels, it still feels more of a like a prayer, and or also if they came to you, you know what I mean? Like more of that energy where it's like, oh, Alexandra's stepping forward for you right now. And this is the message that she's sharing with you in that sense. You know what I mean?
Are they like the seraphim of the cosmic angels? Like, are they here to work with a specific type of human? Are they the ones that are helping a light worker
Yeah,
channel a
that's
book
what,
that's going to bring through a certain energy? Are they the ones here for the bigger, for those
yeah.
kinds of things? Like, they're not here to help you get your keys and your parking. They're here to help you do some important stuff.
Yes, yes. So they definitely do work more with like the light workers. That's what I heard when you were saying that. The people who specifically feel this, like, I'm here to be a light worker. I'm here to bring through this light. I'm here because there's a bigger calling, even though I don't know what it is, like
Mm,
that they're here to work with those people.
those kinds of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel, yeah, I see we're talking about them. I kind of had that sense of they're the ones that are behind the, I heard a voice and I was able to write this book and things like.
Yes. 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 Exactly. Exactly.
And so the cosmic angels, I'm trying to build my mental map. The Herschel angels and the cosmic angels work with, so going back to our conversation with Josephine about the Akashic records and that energy and we were there and that being kind of that place where that those councils of light get together to figure out what
Right.
souls are here to do or anywhere where souls
Yeah.
work and figure out that. So I'm guessing Herschel angels and cosmic angels are kind of more inhabiting that
Yes.
space.
Yes. Yes.
So when
They're
we
like they
connect with the Akashic,
oversee I see them as like overseers almost of that.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you connect to the Akashic records and go there and do some work with your higher self and are trying to figure out what your soul purpose is, that's when you would potentially run into a
Yeah.
Herschel angel.
Yeah, exactly. Like might bump into them, like, oh hey.
Oh, hey, you're part of the council today. You came to the meeting. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. And then cosmic angels, I see them even one step further from that. Like they're
Yeah.
above the records, just checking everything out.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
They're more like
Exactly. It's
this
like
universe, that universe.
they're
And
yeah. It's like they're just making sure that everything's like in check. Like, okay, this is things are going good, or like this is going according to, whatever the plan is. Kind of
right.
thing.
I'm guessing they step it. They're like, yeah, that planet's about to blow up. We need to do. We need to intervene. We
Exactly.
need yeah. We need to isolate
Exactly.
people.
No, but in all seriousness, though, I do feel like the awareness of these higher angels has come through in recent years because of the fact that the planet is hitting the crisis button. Like the planet is like running the
Do
like
we need to, do we
emergency,
need to step in?
the silent emergency button. Like please
Yeah.
somebody come help. Like that. I feel. I feel that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because on one hand, it does feel like a which came first, the chicken or the egg situation,
Mhm.
where it does feel like, okay, we are raising in our consciousness. Like over the last however many decades, humanity has been increasing its consciousness, increasing in its awareness. You can just see it by the availability of this type of information versus what
Yeah.
was talked about back in like the 80s or the 90s or even earlier than that, right? So you can see the evolution of humanity's consciousness and how we're thinking and how we are evolving in that way. And so that part is what has allowed us to be receptive and be open and to be able to receive this higher consciousness and connection to the Herschel angels and to the cosmic angels, right? So like we are more open and more receptive and in a different frequency, so we can have that point of connection. And also at the same time, it's kind of like, well, the planet is now here, like the earth is here.
Yeah, we
And
are.
so the emergency button has been pressed. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, again, which one came first? And maybe it was always meant to be this way where both are happening at the same time. That's most likely what the answer is. But you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying. It's that sort of situation where we have thankfully reached a level where we can connect with that. And also we need them. Like we really need them right now.
Yeah, we
So,
really need them.
that's where we're at.
It must be part. I mean, it has to be part of the plan.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
They were coming all along. They're just letting us see through the, cracks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, now we know the level. So, which that brings us to a lovely topic, and we're very close to well, at the time when this comes out, maybe it's past your event, which is all about that theme, the soul alignment, and really stepping into what we
Yeah.
came here to do and our higher purpose and making that connection and just really aligning with that energy.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So it'll actually be interesting. We'll have to record a podcast episode after the
Yeah.
event to be like, this is what actually happened. But as far as in terms of the information that's been coming through right now, what I've been feeling around the Awaken with Angels event and everything that I've been personally experiencing, that I've been shown, is that it's this, we're coming to a time period right now where a lot of souls are feeling this calling, or this feeling of there's something more. There's, I'm being called to step into something more. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's just this feeling. And so when we come together in a collective way like that, in a space where we are coming together to step into a deeper level of remembrance in terms of who we are, in terms of what we're here to do, the light that we experience in that moment, it gets amplified. And so I was talking to some of the attendees around this. We had a pre-event call, and what was coming through in that moment was that when we come together, we're like mirrors for each other. And so our light is like being reflected from each other, which helps us to then remember our own light. So if I'm like, let's say we were, even right now, we're not in a room physically together, but let's say I'm holding a mirror and a mirror right here. What would you see in the mirror? You would see your light. And so it's kind of like my light is reflecting to you your
Right.
light, and then you're holding a mirror and I can see my light through your mirror. So it's kind of like we're all reflecting it to each other, and then that gets amplified. And
Okay.
so what I see is that an event like this, and what they're guiding for this event, is that there's this amplification of light that's meant to happen, meaning more of it is coming forward. So think of it too as from within our souls, like light that has been dimmed for a while, for a long time, maybe since we were born, because of just being in this dense energy and dense frequency and not remembering who we were. So as we remember, more of that light comes forward. We're able to hold more of that energy. And so as we amplify it together, we then walk away from an event like that feeling more integrated and more embodied in who we truly are, so that we can then, from then on, show up in the world in a new way, in a different way, in a more embodied way, and aligned to who we are.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that's been coming through a lot, and I honestly, at this point right now, as we're recording, I don't know yet if it's like for me personally or just like for the collective too. I don't know. We're going to find out, I guess, as we get closer to the event. But I've been feeling Jesus coming through a lot for me. Like he's been coming through so much. I had this unexpected meditation experience with him where I realized after the fact that he was activating my higher heart chakra, which I only realized that was a thing when I started to research. Like I was like, so it felt like he was having me connect to this energy that felt like it wasn't like within, like, how with the chakras we
Yeah.
feel it like in the center of our body. This felt like it was just slightly outside. and it felt like it was at the level around my collarbone, like not quite my throat, not my heart, a little bit higher than my heart. And so it felt like there was this gold energy being activated here. I felt like I was connecting directly with Jesus. I heard Christ consciousness. I heard like I was felt like God was right there and I was talking to God. Like it was just such a interesting experience. And in that I was feeling a lot of emotions, like in terms of like the heaviness, I felt a lot of this like, oh, it's so hard. Like being a human is so hard right now. I'm feeling so many things. I feel so frustrated and angry and just like, and I think earlier that day I was just being triggered,
Okay.
like
Like,
just random things, just, you know, like my husband this or my kids or blah, 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 like whatever. I was just being triggered. And so I was just feeling so many feelings. And I felt like in that moment, I was just like, oh my God, please, like this human thing is so hard right now. And I just felt as though that just was lifted, like almost like peeled away. And
mm-hmm.
all that was left was this light. And it felt like this like in that moment, like almost instant of remembrance of like who I am and why I'm here. And just, it's just almost like a coming back. Like, I
Right.
know this is hard, but this is why you're here. And
This is
this is
why
who
we
you are.
decided to come here.
And I felt like it was like a mirroring, like exactly what I just said, as though like Jesus was mirroring it back to me, you know, and this awakening of a Christ consciousness. So, anyways, I come out of that. I was like, wow, that was amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you, whatever. And I was like, what was that like, what was this thing? Like, I
Yeah.
didn't hear higher heart, but then I started to research it. And I was describing it as like, what's this area above the heart, kind of outside of me, blah, 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 whatever. And higher heart was what came through or
Mm-hmm.
what I found. And I was like, oh, higher heart. And like kept researching. And then like I saw things talking about Christ consciousness and all these things, like direct connection to a greater divine energy, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that is really cool. And so all that to say, it does feel like the time period that we're in right now, like how that energy that Jesus was embodying of what he was teaching and how he was talking about this Christ energy that exists within all of us and not in within any religious context, but just from a pure spiritual truth perspective of that energy, how it exists within every single one of us and how we're here to live in that and embody that. I feel like that is the biggest calling here, is how do I bring that forward? That whether you think of it as your divine light, your higher self, your higher purpose, your Christ consciousness, whatever, to me it all kind of feels interchangeable. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really this energy of that coming alive and that being activated once again. By the way, I just saw 444 on like the recording
Yay.
thing. It said 444 as I said that. So
That is
thank
magical. Thank
you.
you. But this is okay. Wait. First off, do you realize what you just described? Like, did
No,
you
I don't, tell me.
you would be here talking so casually about, yeah, Jesus came through and did this activation and peeled away that is the wildest thing, right, that you're just describing, having some of these experiences sometimes, and it's like, wait, you talked to Jesus? What do you mean? So anyway, that's just
Yeah.
that out, how special that is, but we just talk about it as it's nothing.
Like whatever. I just had a
Yeah,
like just
Jesus came the
grab
other
coffee with him. Like whatever.
my bestie, and I just was talking to him for a while.
Yeah.
That's incredible, by the way. But that is so, gives us so much hope that perhaps we're not someone as perceptive as you are and evolved in that way, and we're not necessarily here to be a channel like that. But the fact that he's connecting with that energy is connecting with all of us humans, even if we can't perceive it, and activating whatever it is that needs to be activated, especially in a forum like this when you're going to be with other people surrounded and aligned, like in that purpose of doing that work in an intentional way. And I think that's what we see when we gather. It doesn't matter how, like if it is a church or whatever that looks like, but there's a different kind of energy that happens and things that are activated when you are in community with other people, and the intention, the prayer, and it's just aligned, and we're all there focused on this one thing we're saying, this one being we're praying to, right? So I think that's the magic that happens when we're in ceremony with others, whatever that looks
Yes.
like. but it's that container that's created and that energy that's there that's so powerful, and that can be virtual, that can be in person.
Yep.
It's just the coming together and stepping into that container. I even remember the workshops we did a couple of weeks ago, maybe, even if it was virtual, because we were all connecting together, we were all part of the container. It was so powerful, and we were even having similar experiences in meditation. What, even though we were apart, it was bizarre how we were seeing similar things. So it's so powerful to come
Yes.
together as a collective, aligned in intention, and just wanting to move humanity in a certain direction.
Yes, 1,000%. And I love that this is coming up because it feels like it's bringing everything full circle from what we were talking about at the beginning in terms of just like what we're seeing in the world and like how do we deal with that and how do we move forward. And that, I think that's exactly the
Yes,
key. What
it
you just said is that we have to come into community with people that we feel aligned with and that are kind of having that same, I don't want to say mission, but maybe mission is the right word. Like that have that same kind of, I don't know, like we're walking the same path in that
is.
way, of wanting to bring healing and light and truth back to humanity and to allow that to be amplified within us. So and it's exactly that. Whether you have people around you, can find community around you in person to bring that alive or online, like online, YouTube, Instagram, wherever it is that you like to hang out, but it exists and it's out there. We need to be plugged into it so that we can come together in exactly that way, like you said.
Exactly. It's just coming together with good intentions to show up in our full, as who we are, showing up in our true identity, and coming together with the intention to heal humanity, to be of service, to make this planet better. Hopefully, we don't implode. Hopefully, the cosmic angels have to step in and do
Yeah.
something with us, and just come here and fulfill our soul mission and our purpose here on Earth, and just being in that intention of
Yes.
aligning ourselves with our highest purpose, that is not only the best for us but the best for the collective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. 1,000%, 1,000%. And like I almost feel like this prayer coming through as you're saying that, like help us to come together, angels, God, universe, all divine beings, like help us to come together in the way that we are meant to come to serve the greater divine truth, the greater divine light, to show up as our true selves and help us to navigate this craziness of this world.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Help us heal. Help us make it through.
Thank you.
Help us make it out of this one. It's
Yeah.
looking really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's lovely. That's an amazing
So
note
beautiful.
to wrap things.
I know. That was amazing. I wasn't expecting to do like a impromptu prayer there, but
There
here
you
we
go.
are.
There you go.
So, yes, to all of our listeners, let us know in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, what's coming up for you? How are you navigating this? What questions do you have? We can definitely continue with this conversation and all of the things, but let us know in the comments below how you're navigating this at this time. And we can't wait to continue this conversation. And as always, thank you so much for being a part of this community and being here and listening. And we're always reading your comments, even if we don't have a chance to answer all of them, but just know that you are seen and we appreciate you. So thank you.
And you can always connect to us, reach out, and we're happy to hear your stories and your comments and your feedback. Thank you so much for engaging with us, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.